When is the official start date of the Feast of First Fruits? This study is going to do its best in trying to figure this out for you so you can understand when it starts. We are told that it either starts on the 16th day of the first month and or on the Sunday after Yahushua rose. I feel like both thoughts are misguided, and here is why. Now, the assumption that the morrow after the Sabbath of Leviticus 23:11 means the Sabbath day of Nisan 15 was the only day like this in the Feast of Unleavened Bread is wrong. Although the first day is a holy convocation, Leviticus 23:7, also the seventh day, Nisan 21, is one, Leviticus 23:8, and therefore would likewise be worded as being also a Sabbath high day. We also see in Leviticus 23:14, it says, "And ye shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears, until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto your God," which would be the first day of the Feast of First Fruits. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is happening on Nisan 16, during the time when they say the Feast of First Fruits should be starting. And so it's evident to me to know that they can't be the proper timing to start the Feast of First Fruits. One can't have an offering of bread, Greek word G142, bread as raised or loaf, given while a celebration with instructions for not eating leavened bread is going on. This is just not possible. Now, the other day that one's tried to push the start of the Feast of First Fruits is 18 Nisan, which again would be right in the celebration of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So again, the same points that I just made about the 16th day of Nisan. But then they also try to take that 18th day of Nisan and change it to Easter Sunday and say that that's the day of the start of the Feast of First Fruits, the day after the Sabbath. And that, again, is wrong. So what is right? The description of the Feast of Unleavened Bread starts at Leviticus 23:6 and ends with Leviticus 23:8. We don't see any mention of the Feast of First Fruits until Leviticus 23:10. Therefore, it is my opinion that following in Scripture, it's likewise following in celebration of it. Now, my next point is found in the book of Jubilee. We see in this book, in chapter 16, verse 13, that it says, "And she bare a son in the third month, and in the middle of the month, at the time in which the Lord had spoken to Abraham on the festival of the first fruits of the harvest, Isaac was born." Now, this is important to note because if we look back at the 16 of Nisan on the Hebrew calendar, when I told you that a lot of people think that the Feast of First Fruits starts, if we go forward 50 days, that would bring us to the third month on the Hebrew calendar of Sivan, in the sixth day of Sivan. As you can tell, that the sixth day of Sivan would not be considered as the middle part of the month, and instead would be considered the first part of the month. Now, likewise, if we go forward with the thinking of the 18th of Nisan, the first fruits feast starting, and going forward 50 days, we'd end up coming to the third month in the 8th day of Sivan, which again would be considered the first third and not the middle third of the month. So let's go back my way of thinking and look at the date of 22 of Nisan. Looking at that date and then going forward again 50 days, it will bring us to the third month, into the 12th day of Sivan, which I feel the 12th day of Sivan matches best with the middle third of the month. As anything after the 10th day of Sivan would be considered the middle third of the month. Anything after the 20th day would be the last part of the month. Now, my next point involves the story of the road to Emmaus, or however you pronounce it, where Yahushua actually ate bread. And the Greek word G142, meaning bread, as raised or loaf, on the evening after sundown of Nisan 21, in what I believe would have been the first time, the evening, of being able to eat risen bread, Luke 24:30. Following Luke 24, we find that indeed this was the evening of Nisan 21. In Luke 24:13, we read, "And behold, two of them went that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 60 furlongs." Now, when most people read this, they believe that the day was Sunday, that the same day is talking about, in the 18th day of Nisan, the first month. But this is all wrong, and I am going to show you exactly why. If we look at this narrative of Luke 24:13, that same day, that is Greek word G1722, meaning by. Same is Greek word G846, meaning themselves. And day is Greek word G2250, meaning in the daytime. In context, it should have said two of them went by themselves in the daytime to a village called Emmaus. Neat is finding out that it didn't mean Sunday and instead meant another day. We can then look at the scripture that reads in Luke 24, verse 21, "Today is the third day since these things were done." And we can know that it wasn't the third day from when he was crucified, as that would have been on Saturday, 17th of Nisan. And what was mentioned as being done was all these things that happened, which would have included coming to the sepulchre, again, I don't know if that's pronounced right, on the first day of the week, and finding not the body. So the third day from Nisan 18 would have been Nisan 21. And he broke the bread then with them that evening after the sun had set on Nisan 21, and being the end of the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the official start of the Feast of Firstfruits. It seems apparent to me that indeed Yahushua did break bread on that night of Nisan 21. Now we look back at John 20:17, and Yahushua said to Mary, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I ascend to my Father." Now if we then look at Luke 24:33, where it says, "And they rose up the same hour, and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered together, and them that were with them." And then look at Luke 24:39, where it says, "Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I, myself. Handle me, and see, for a spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me have." So indeed, at that time, he had ascended to his Father, for he was telling them to touch him and feel him, instead of not touching and feeling him that he had told to Mary. He was at that time the first fruit risen, and was able to be touched on the evening of 21 Nisan and broke the bread. Start counting the Feast of Firstfruits on the 22nd day of the first month of Nisan on the Hebrew calendar.